Hello you lovely lot, my name is Max and welcome back to my YouTube channel and yet another Nottingham Forest match preview. Yes, we are back after a thrilling result against Blackpool away from home on Saturday afternoon. We are back with another match preview. Today you're going to be talking about tonight's game taking on Coventry City. I believe at the City Ground this time, returning home after a really good run of results in recent weeks. Of course, a good place to start this video will be talking about the fantastic result picked up by the Reds on their travels 4-1 away at Blackpool. A really good result that propelled us up to 7th in the championship table and within tasting distance, touching distance of those playoff places we so hope to be in the end of this season. So let's talk a bit about that game first and then we'll talk a little bit about the game against Coventry tonight. As usual, time code on screen if you want to skip forward to that. Without any further ado, let's crack into it. Before we do that though, don't forget to drop a like on this video if you enjoy it and subscribe to the channel whilst you are down there. We're getting very close to 400 subscribers. I can taste it. So please show some support to the channel if you enjoy this video by dropping a like, subscribing down below, and let's get into the video. And what a result it was against Blackpool. Like I've mentioned, 4-1 on our travels. Great to get another bucket load of goals away from home. It really aids in our goal difference. And it could come down to that with how tight things are at the top of the table come the end of the season. The goals on the day, if you missed the game, it came from Philip Zinkenagel, who got an early deflected strike in the first half. Brennan Johnson then rounded out a double late in the first half. And then in the second half, Sam Surridge was able to add a fourth to our tally with one coming back from Blackpool to make things look a little bit more comfortable for them. And as expected, despite what the scoreline might suggest, this was actually quite a tough game with both teams seeing around the same amount of possession and both teams taking around 17-18 shots apiece. It was very tight and actually quite an open and expansive game, which is exactly what we expected and anticipated in the previous match preview. Despite this, Forest were largely more clinical with the chances that they had and actually restricted Blackpool to shots that were a little bit more speculative, the majority of their shots coming from outside the area and not really being able to generate the high quality opportunities that a team of their quality probably should be getting, really. Of course, pretty obviously, the man of the match on the day was the double scoring Welsh whiz Brennan Johnson, and probably had one of the best individual performances I've seen from a Forest player this season. He gained a 9.5 rating according to Who Scored, scoring twice and setting up that opening goal for his Danish compatriot Philip Zinkenagel. He led the Forest squad for shots, taking 3 over the course of the 90 minutes, and only James Garner created more chances than him in the Nottingham Forest squad during the game, showing how important it was not just to scoring the chances, but also setting up chances for his teammates on the day. But really, you couldn't quantify it in the value, in the numbers, how good his performance was. He was always showing for the ball, always coming short for it, always going long for it, always available to take on his opposition. And the triangles that I've sort of mentioned in previous videos that he was creating with Jed Spence and the right-sided central midfielder, whether that be Yates or Garner throughout the 90 minutes, was impeccable. His ability to create space for himself and find space in that right half space is pretty unmatched in the Championship, I would say. And you can really see why certain teams who play in a similar style to Forest are very interested in the Welsh international. Also worth noting as well, an honourable mention I guess for the man of the match was Scott McKenna. Obviously we didn't keep the clean sheet in the end, but he was very important in restricting Blackpool to only scoring 1 goal. He also grabbed himself an assist for that late Sam Surridge goal, and actually, to be fair, to say he was supposed to be out with 6 weeks worth of injury and he came back within 2 and put up that good of a performance on the day, I was very impressed, and again very narrowly missed out as man of the match on the day, in my opinion at least. So with all that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about Coventry City this season, how their season is going so far, and preview our upcoming match tonight against the Sky Blues. Well, at the time of recording, they are comfortably sitting in a mid-table position, although this season did start off pretty promisingly for the Sky Blues, sitting within the playoffs as recently as the November-December period during the first half of the season, although they did drop off significantly during the second half. And this has really been reflected in their recent league form, having only picked up 5 points from the last 15 available, including just 1 win in their last 5 games. Wins have been hard to come by, but they have picked up some pretty big scalps this season, including most recently a 4-1 win over Sheffield United only a few weeks back. But over that same period, they've also dropped points to the likes of Hull City and Derby County, teams not exactly flying high in the Championship at the moment. It's really been a season of ups and downs for the Sky Blues so far. Like I say, a very inconsistent season that has seen them fluctuate fluctuate positions in the league, but I'm sure Coventry City fans will take a season of mid-table safety, returning back to the home stadium, which is great to see. And hopefully next season, with the young and talented squad that they have at their disposal, maybe pushing on to the playoffs next season. But we'll see how they get on. So now we've given a little bit of context as to how their season's going so far. Let's discuss what makes them such a solid mid-table side that are pushing towards those playoff places, because under the hood, they actually look like quite an interesting team and one of the better teams in the championship at the time of recording. Scoring goals has been no kind of issue for the Sky Blues this season. With 51 goals in the league so far, they are the joint 7th highest scorers in the championship, and their top scorer, Victor Gyökeres, has 14 goals, with only 6 teams in the league having a higher top scorer this season, if you sort of catch my drift there. And they're actually very good at generating high quality opportunities. They rank 3rd in the championship for the amount of shots that they take per match and the total shots that they've taken over the course of the season. And defensively, they aren't too bad either. They only concede around 10 shots per match, which is pretty good by championship standards. However, despite the fact they don't actually concede that many shots, they've conceded quite a lot of goals this season, 48 to be specific, with only 8 teams in the league having conceded more than them, and only 5 teams having kept fewer clean sheets over the course of the season. So they concede very few shots, but they concede quite a lot of goals. This suggests that it could be a quite poor goalkeeping performance this season from their first choice, Simon Moore. And with a 68% save percentage over the course of the season, like we've discussed, around 70% is average in the championship, you could probably point the finger of blame for such a lackluster defensive record, despite how good they are at stopping shots towards their goalkeeping position. Now hear me out, I think possibly the weakest part of Coventry could be their ability to restrict long shots. Now hear me out, this is quite a weird and slightly contrived explanation, but it's quite weird how their shots are lining up despite how many goals they've conceded. They concede 39% of their shots per match from outside the box. This is the second best record in the championship this season, and actually only concede around 8% of their shots from within the 6 yards box, which is again pretty highly ranked in the championship. So this suggests that maybe they're just not very good at defending long shots, or their goalkeeper isn't very good at saving shots from range. This is the biggest conclusion I can take from this. So in terms of how Forest can counteract this, I would like to see us maybe test the goalkeeper from distance. Usually when a team is taking shots from outside the box, you argue that they may be getting a bit frustrated, they can't break down the opposition. But when a team is conceding so many goals over the course of the season, despite the fact they only concede around 10 shots per match, and their goalkeeper has a poor save percentage, but by no stretches an awful save percentage, you've got to maybe look at other avenues of getting goals, because they don't concede a lot of set pieces. They concede some penalties, but not loads compared to other teams in the championship. So you've got to look for other avenues to attack, and maybe testing the keeper from distance is that avenue. Let me know what you think of that in the comment section down below. I think that's quite interesting, the fact that they have conceded, in context to a lot of teams in the championship, quite a lot of goals at this stage of the season, despite the fact that they have a pretty sort of run-of-the-mill goalkeeper by championship standards. They don't concede a lot of shots. In fact, they're one of the best teams at restricting opposition shots. So you've got to think, where are these goals coming from? They don't concede a lot of set-piece goals. Where are they coming from? Overall, Coventry City are a side that are very dangerous going forward. They're one of the best sides in the league at generating high quality opportunities and getting shots on target, but they also concede a lot of goals, and clean sheets have been hard to come by this season, with just 9 in the league. And it's not for a lack of trying. They are pretty tight, they are pretty compact, and they do restrict their opponents to around 10 shots per match. But from outside the box, this seems to potentially be where they are the most vulnerable, and definitely where Forest can try and attack them. Despite the fact their defensive record is a bit of a mystery, their goal scoring record is not a mystery, and the way they shape up and line up is a huge part of that. So let's discuss that in a little bit of detail. Well, the Sky Blues actually shape up and line up in a pretty similar shape and formation to Nottingham Forest. They predominantly play a 3 at the back system that involves their wing backs pushing high and wide when they have time on the ball. This is usually Frankie Darboe on the right and Ian Matson on the left. And again, it's very similar to how Forest build up through the wide areas with Spence and usually Maxwell, although sometimes Jack Colback on the left. They create that huge amount of space out on those wide positions, so they've got that sort of orthodox front five that we discussed last week. And the Chelsea loanee Ian Maatson has been a big reason as to why this has been so successful for the Sky Blues this season. The 20-year-old has 3 goals and 1 assist in the Championship this season, completing around 3.5 tackles and interceptions per match. For context, Jed Spence completes around 3, so he's a little bit more solid defensively, but doesn't quite do as much going forward. Spence much more of a dribbly, ball-carrying wing-back. Ian Maatson a little bit more solid, a little bit more reserved, and a little bit more of a passing hub on that left-hand side. That being said, he is a hell of an athlete and a really good player down that left-hand side, and I would suggest as much. If we can't get a max low deal permanently sorted in the summer, I think we could do worse than potentially looking at Ian Maatson, bringing him back on loan next season if Chelsea are looking to do so, because they don't have a lot of depth in that position. We don't have a lot of depth in that position, I should say, and I think having a player with Championship pedigree who's played in England for a little while could be quite useful. Ahead of that defence, they have 2 sitting midfielders who are very important in the roles that they have within that squad. This normally sees Ben Sheaf sit and screen in front of the back line, being the major defensive presence in that midfield, able to mop up opportunities and loose balls and make those quick, small passes into the midfield and forward into the forward line when needed. This then allows Gustavo Hamer to have the license to push forward when he wants to, a little bit more in a box-to-box position, allows him to push up alongside the front line and create overloads and sort of overloads in the pressing area and defensive areas of the pitch as well, as and when he's needed to. And that front line I mentioned earlier is pretty flexible in the way that they can shape up, although the personnel is pretty consistent throughout matches during this season. Matt O'Hare is the more creative of that front three, normally playing as a number 10, although he can drift into the left half space in order to pick up space, loose balls, that kind of thing. And like I said, the most creative player in that squad, leading the squad for chance creation around 2 per match, and the second best ball carrier in that team, 1.5 dribbles per match as well. And then you have their probably most potent attacking threat, as we mentioned earlier, their top goal scorer, Victor Gyökeres, with 14 goals in the Championship this season. He can play as a more orthodox striker, but he can also drop down into that wide number 10 position that we mentioned with Matt O'Hare earlier, and leads the squad not just in dribbles, but also in shots taken per match with around 3, which ranks him pretty highly as a Championship forward. The advantage of lining up in the way in which they line up is quite obviously the ability to generate a conventional front five that's become very popular in modern day football, whilst also having that stability at the back of having an extra centre back and 2 hardy midfielders who can do the defensive work when required. As we mentioned last week, I did a really sort of in-depth explanation of the conventional front five system that a lot of modern attacking teams have been adopting. So again, I'd suggest you check that out for a bit more in-depth analysis on that. But the pushing forward of the wing backs, as wide attacking threats, enables the wide attackers to come inside into the half space, congest the centre of the pitch, and ideally create more chances for themselves. And this has become very popular, not just in the Championship, but in the Premier League. Chelsea are a really good example of this, of a team who play a 3 at the back system, but can still get that front 5 high and wide of the pitch, occupying each of the 5 zones across the pitch. They're a really good example of it. Liverpool do a really good job of it as well. Fabinho dropping in as that nominal centre back, and they are really good examples if you're looking at trying to understand what I'm trying to explain. I would also, if you get the chance, check out this week's Monday Night Football on Sky. Derby manager Wayne Rooney did a really good job of explaining how he uses the wing backs in order to allow his wingers to sort of play as wide number 10s, and he did a really good explain of the pros and the cons of that system. Again, not sponsored, but go check it out. It's a really good explanation of how that system has become so prevalent in the Championship especially. And it does seem that the biggest weakness that this side faces is really a product of every team playing this system. It's something we as Forest fans aren't too unfamiliar with. It's the space vacated by the fullbacks when they push high, and then these wide centre backs, the space in there. And I would imagine these are the areas of the game where we're going to see the most possession for both sides, because it is arguably the biggest weakness of both teams, I would suggest. This really needs to be where Forest direct their attacks. Brennan versus Maatson is going to be a very fun battle down our right and their left, and a real interesting test of 2 players who seem very much capable of playing Premier League football at this stage, their young stages of their careers. Overall, I think it's pretty obvious this is not going to be a boring game. There's going to be quite a lot of goals in this. Both teams concede a decent amount of goals, but both teams also score quite a lot of goals. So I would suggest it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to go probably for a 3-1 win for Forest. I would imagine with the run of form that we're on at the moment and how good we've been in those games, that we probably have that little bit more quality to see our way past Coventry City. But I do think they'll probably prove to be the biggest test we've had in the last few weeks. They are a very dangerous side, even with a couple of their sort of first choice players, particularly in their backline, doubtful for this game. Carl McFadzean and Jake Clark-Slater are unavailable or doubts this match. That could be an issue for them in their defensive backline region. So that's probably where we need to be testing them the most. Of course, as always, let me know in the comment section down below what you think the scoreline is going to be for this game. I watch down there, let me know what you think of this Coventry City side at the moment and my analysis of the Sky Blues in this video. Apologies that the cuts have been a bit all over the place, sort of cut on time this week for getting this video out, so it might be a bit shorter than usual as well, but I've tried to condense down everything I could find on Coventry City so us Forest fans can have a bit more understanding of our opposition. And if you did enjoy it, don't forget to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel whilst you're down there. If you're new around here, these videos come out every single time Forest are playing, so hopefully I can see you in the next one. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the game, Reds. I will see you at the weekend for our next match preview later.